You know that person who plans a masterpiece and then spends 3 months rearranging the header font? That's Alex, my favorite human chaos magnet. I'm watching him now, grandly sketching a 60-step plan for a simple to-do list, like it's a NASA launch sequence. And yes, he has a color-coded emergency spreadsheet just for his pens. Perfectionism walks into the room wearing a top hat and a cape, and Alex gives it a standing ovation. He waits for the mythical perfect moment, which is approximately the same time as unicorns start paying rent, and in the meantime, nothing gets done. I can't help but narrate his internal monologue. If it's not perfect, it's pointless, which, spoiler alert, is not a productivity hack. Observe the rituals. 5 motivational quotes. Reorganizing the bookshelf by emotional resonance. 1 hour of research that looks suspiciously like doom scrolling. Alex is a master procrastinator with certifications in BusyWorks and honors in creative avoidance. I'm trying not to laugh, but also making mental notes for future interventions. Spoiler, they involve timers and bribery. And then, the coffee spill. Classic, cinematic, perfect for a slow-motion freeze frame, except that's just my imagination. In real life, it's just a stain and a sigh. Alex flails for napkins like a man solving world hunger with absorbent paper, which remains impressively symbolic of his approach to big goals. Panic followed by improvisation. That's when I step in with the diplomatic solution. Alex, what if we try one tiny thing instead of trying to redesign your whole life? He looks at me like I suggested we add a single grain of sand to the Sahara and call it a start, but he's curious. Trust me, curiosity is the single best ticket out of the perfectionism circus. No clowns involved, unless you count me. I promise him micro habits. Tiny, repeatable actions so small he can't mount a philosophical objection. He blinks. It's an adorable blink, the kind that says, I'll try anything short of kale. We agree to try a 2-minute task, a minute of something, or even just one clear step. And yes, Alex initially tests the theory by setting a timer for 2 minutes to stare at the timer. We set up the lab, sticky note prototypes, a tiny checklist, and my calm, slightly theatrical pep talk. I explained that the point isn't to climb Everest today, it's to put on hiking socks. Alex nods solemnly, as if the socks could also solve climate change, and I let him have the symbolic victory. I introduced the 2-minute rule. If it takes less than 2 minutes, do it now, which Alex hears as 2 minutes of heroism. He tries it by washing one dish and striking a pose like a tiny domestic gladiator. It's silly, it works, and he gets that small, addictive dopamine hit that says, I can move things forward. Next, habit stacking. We attach a tiny new action to something Alex already does, like reading 1 page with his morning coffee. He pulls a face at the idea, but then discovers that 1 page is shockingly less threatening than a 3-chapter commitment. Victory. The page exists, and he doesn't need to summon a muse or light incense. We create a tiny wins calendar. Yes, I know. I'm using high-grade motivational psychology wrapped in sticker paper. Alex lights up at the idea of stickers. Apparently, he's 5 years old at heart and also deeply susceptible to colorful adhesive rewards. He actually crosses a day off and then high-fives himself in the mirror, which I will allow because it's effective. We run experiments like slightly ridiculous scientists. 1 minute of tidying versus 3 minutes of writing versus a 30-second stretch. Alex pretends to be a lab tech, clipboard and all, which is adorable and marginally useful. Every experiment is low risk and high curiosity, the perfect formula for getting humans to try things without staging a coup against their comfort zones. We celebrate like it's a tiny Olympic medal. Jazz hands, a silly sound effect, the whole show. Alex takes this seriously, awarding himself a gold star for 1 minute of progress, which I endorse wholeheartedly. The moral, small celebrations wire the brain to like progress more than perfection, and stickers do not judge. Slow and steady, we nudge Alex from 2 minutes to 5, not by decree, but by asking what feels doable tomorrow. He replies with a very cautious, maybe 5, like he's agreeing to adopt a small island nation. Progress in increments beats heroic sprints, and it preserves Alex's dignity, which is important to maintain for comedic rhythm. Then, I introduce temptation bundling, pairing something pleasant with something productive, like listening to a favorite podcast only while folding laundry. Alex perks up at the idea of combining fun and chores like a culinary fusion, and suddenly folding becomes a premium activity. Nothing says adulting like elite multitasking tricks and audio entertainment. We tweak difficulty instead of scrapping the dream. Smaller goals, clearer definitions, and fewer dramatic speeches at midnight. Alex learns to reframe write a books into write 100 words, and then to honor that 100 words like it's a tiny spiritual practice. It's less romantic, more consistent, and shockingly effective. Also fewer tears, which benefits everyone. Slip-ups are inevitable. And yes, Alex had at least one spectacularly theatrical I give up moment involving cookies and dramatic sighing. I tell him to treat slips like small, slightly embarrassing hiccups, not proof of eternal failure. We eat a cookie, shake it off, and pick one tiny action for tomorrow. It's the reset that matters more than the tumble. We layer in accountability, not the "I'm going to shame you" variety, but gentle check-ins with a friend or a 30-second journal note. Alex chooses a friend who loves celebrating small things, which is perfect because Alex's trophies are now stickers and silly emojis. Accountability works best when it's encouraging and slightly silly, which keeps things human and sustainable. Over weeks, those tiny habits expand like well-fed kudzu, but in a nice, tidy way instead of smothering everything. Alex starts stacking tiny wins into a routine. 2 minutes of stretching, 5 minutes of writing, a 1 minute tidy. It's not glamorous, but it produces something more durable than last-minute fury, real, steady progress, and a boost to his confidence. Perfectionism isn't noble. It's a very loud inner critic wearing a beret and a superiority complex. Alex's critic speaks in absolute terms, the kind of voice that would judge a pancake for having a wrinkle. I point it out gently because naming a monster takes away half its power, and the other half, frankly, is probably just hangry. We reframe perfectionism into curiosity and iteration. What can you try today? Replaces, is this perfect? Alex practices this like a new language, making small verbal switches that feel oddly revolutionary. The change is subtle, but it's like swapping out a magnifying glass of judgment for one that gently inspects and learns. I coach Alex about identity-based habits. Rather than, "I want to finish a project," try, "I'm someone who starts things and improves them." He initially balks because identity sounds like a TED Talk, but then he realizes that calling himself a practicer of tiny things is way less terrifying. Identity is slippery, but when you gently step into it, your habits follow like loyal puppies. Good enough is a radical concept for someone who previously sought perfection like it was a collectible card. I tell Alex it's okay to ship a draft, to post an imperfect photo, and to email with one typo, and amazingly, the world does not implode. He tries it and experiences a mild miracle, relief, and an odd burst of freedom, which we both find delightful. We practice self-compassion like it's a muscle, small, repetitive, slightly awkward at first, and then surprisingly strong. Alex tries a compassionate internal phrase and looks at me as if I taught him a magic spell. The spell? I tried. That mattered. It's not glamorous, but it dampens the critic and rewards the effort. Finally, we give perfectionism an exit strategy. It can be present as long as it doesn't run the show. Alex waves a small flag and tells the critic, "You can sit in the audience, but not direct the play," which is both theatrical and practical. The critic sulks, which is healthy. It learns to grumble quietly while Alex builds momentum. Tune your environment to make the tiny thing obvious. Put your running shoes by the door, your book on the pillow, or your guitar next to the couch. Alex is surprisingly compliant when bribed by convenience. Even he admits that out of sight often equals out of momentum. We reshape a few corners of his apartment like interior decorators for micro-habits, and the results are predictably tidy and slightly smug. Cues are tiny triggers, a sticky note, an alarm chime, or a visible prop that nudges action. Alex is nostalgic for analog cues, so we make a colorful cue board which he treats like a pet, naming each cue and occasionally apologizing to them. The goal is simple. Make the next step obvious, not optional, and cue with the subtlety of a good friend, not a town crier. Tracking doesn't have to be a spreadsheet abyss. It can be a single column where you check done and feel triumphant. Alex tries a tiny habit tracker app and a paper list, and then decides paper is more satisfying because he gets to physically scratch things out like an ancient ritual. Choose a system you love. If it makes you smile, you'll use it more. Time boxing turns a vague mountain into a tiny timed hill. We give Alex micro deadlines. 10 minutes to outline, 15 to draft a paragraph, and a 5-minute sprint to clear his inbox. He discovers adrenaline without panic, which is like coffee that behaves, efficient and mildly inspirational. Pair up with someone who celebrates small wins and tolerates human flaws and maybe shares snacks. Alex picks a friend who insists on a quick video check-in and sends an encouraging GIF every time a micro-habit lands. It's beautifully ordinary and oddly motivating. Plus, gifts are the modern confetti we all deserve. Bribes are fine. Promise yourself a small treat after a tiny win, a cookie, a walk, a 5-minute scroll, as long as it's not self-sabotage in cute wrapping paper. Alex agrees to only watch a favorite show after 20 minutes of focused work, which makes the show feel like premium entertainment. Structure with kindness and a sprinkle of bribery can help build the first few loops of a habit. Months later, I watch Alex ritualize small wins like a champion of the mundane. He checks off his calendar with a ceremonious flourish. The ritual isn't showy, it's sustainable, and it has replaced the old cycle of panic and binge with something steady and satisfying. Honestly, it's the kind of grown-up magic I didn't know I was into until I saw it in action. Relapse happens. Alex once missed a whole week because of a vacation that turned into a do-nothing experiment gone long. We laugh about it, reassess, and plan 3 micro steps to restart. The point isn't to be flawless. It's to be resilient and to return without shame or melodrama, and with a better sunscreen application technique, evidently. One tiny habit begets another. 1 page of reading turns into 10. 1 2-minute stretch becomes a morning routine. Alex smiles like someone proud of a small garden he tended in secret, and it shows in how he carries himself. Habits compound, not in a dramatic explosion, but in a reassuring, steady accretion of competence. Confidence is a byproduct of repetition, not a prerequisite for starting. I point that out while Alex practices saying, "I can start small" out loud like a mantra, and he grins sheepishly because it feels true. It's less about becoming perfect and more about building muscle memory for kindness toward yourself and consistent progress. Here's the twist. Alex starts recommending micro-habits to friends, and occasionally he corrects me like a kindly professor of tiny things. I find myself learning from his steady practice and absurd sticker collection, which I will admit is impressive. It's a reminder that teaching consolidates learning, and tiny wins feel even better when shared. Okay, here's the final nudge. Pick one micro-habit you'll try for a week. Tell someone, set a tiny cue, and reward yourself with a silly sticker or a celebratory snack. If Alex can go from spreadsheet opera to a steady parade of tiny wins, you can too, and I'll be here to cheer, tease, and possibly provide bribes by mail. Kidding, mostly.